How many of you need therapy? That's honest. I don't know anyone in the entire world who has a better comprehensive set of biomarkers than me, anywhere. My body has just bounced back from a pretty dilapidated state. And so it's been interesting to see that science actually works. Like if you actually take a process where you measure stuff and then do scientific intervention. So it's been really bullish for me to say that if you are, and no matter where you're at in life, you actually can bounce back in a very strong way. Let me explain to you a few things that I've done that changed how I understand health. I think I have the world's best sleep score in human history. 8 months of perfect sleep, wearing Whoop. I know many people who struggle to achieve 100% one night. I did it 8 months in a row.
Bryan, thanks for coming in. Okay, so question. So I love hanging out with my friends after work. We all kind of work late, and so it kind of impacts my own sleep.
Yeah.
I think the answer to what I should do is create a system. But what are some hacks that you've done to hang out with your friends during the daytime or even before work?
When you set an engineering requirement and you make it non-negotiable, right, everything else kind of folds itself around it. Right now is, just in the past, like call it 4 or 5 years, is the first time in human history, the first time just in 4 billion years, where a species, an intelligent species, could say with a straight face, we may not die. And I want to propose to you, there's no existing model of human thought or of societal organization that answers the question, what do you do when you're giving birth to superintelligence? I think we exist in the most consequential time in human history. Well, nice to see you all. I'm here to do therapy with you. Yeah? How many of you need therapy? That's honest. Cool. I mean, I remember like there's this this cultural belief in entrepreneurship is that unless you're sacrificing your health, you're not trying hard enough. Right? How many agree with that? I mean, I'm sorry, not agree with that, but like, how many of you agree that that's the cultural consensus? There we go. If you're not sacrificing your health, you're not trying hard enough. Cool. So hopefully today we can punch through because it's really serious that that's the case. And psychologically, it's very hard to overcome that. So I thought we could do some Q&A on various things, but really at the end of the conversation, I really want you guys each to feel permission, culturally and socially, that you can prioritize your health and you can feel great. And that still means you can aspire to do epic things. It takes time to do it, and it takes permission of a community to do it. Cool. So do you guys want to just like do Q&A and stuff, or what do you want to do? I can go through a few things. What's your preference? All right, cool. Okay, so I guess for context, 4 years ago, I did this. How many of you heard me speak before? Okay, so I'm sorry, some of this is going to be a repeat from maybe things I've said before. For the rest, all right. So a couple of years ago, I did this thought experiment where I imagined being in the 25th century. And you're hanging out with them in whatever capacity that intelligence exists. And they're talking amongst themselves, and they're so grateful for Homo sapiens in the early 2020s that they existed in this time where they're transitioning from Homo sapiens to giving birth to superintelligence. And it was such a precarious time. Things could have gone terribly wrong, but actually Homo sapiens were wise enough and they figured out how to keep intelligence thriving in this part of the galaxy. What do they say we did? What do they admire that we did in this moment? I thought about that question for years, and I think what they say is that we figured out that we were transitioning from death being inevitable to having some kind of expanded horizon of life extension. Not that we had arrived at immortality, but that we had seen that we can basically incrementally extend our lives, and that we transitioned as a society from die to don't die. That it's the biggest shift in our history as a species. And so I wondered if I could basically become the most don't die person in human history. Like how would you possibly do that? And so I hired a team of 30 medical professionals. We went through all the scientific evidence. We ranked everything according to effect size. And then we measured every organ of my body. So we tried to get a biological age of my heart, my lungs, my liver, my pancreas, my methylation patterns, everything. And then we said, okay, now you take the science and you apply it to the body. Can you slow down the speed of aging, and can you reverse aging damage that has happened? And so that's what we've been doing for the past couple of years. And it's been remarkable. I started this when I was 43 years old, after I was pretty beat down in life. Like I had I was depressed for 10 years, like chronically depressed. I had like rage as an entrepreneur for 15 years building companies. And so I was really beat down. And remarkably, my body now, I would say my biomarkers are among best in world. I don't know anyone in the entire world who has a better comprehensive set of biomarkers than me, anywhere. Now, I'm sure there are. I'm sure there's many people, they're just not as measured as I am. But still, like if you take a look at my markers, like my speed of aging, as a 47-year-old, my birthday is every 19 months. And that is there's 23,000 people competing on this, and I'm among lowest in the world. My muscles in the top 1%, my optimal fat, top 1%, total bone mineral density, 50 biomarkers. Like my body has just bounced back from a pretty dilapidated state. And so it's been interesting to see that science actually works. Like if you actually take a process where you measure stuff and then do scientific intervention. So it's been really bullish for me to say that if you are, no matter where you're at in life, you actually can bounce back in a very strong way. All right, so that's context. Let me explain to you a few things that I've done that changed how I experienced, how I understand health. So one is sleep. Turns out to be like the most important thing in our lives. Like literally, like there's nothing in existence more important than sleep. And so there's 5 things I do for sleep, and I would encourage you to try to master these 5 habits. Okay, one is you have to reconfigure your identity that you are a professional sleeper. Okay, you don't sleep when it's convenient. You don't sleep when you're done watching a show. You don't sleep when you're done doing a social event. You sleep as your most important appointment of the day. But you have to be serious about this. Like you guys are professional entrepreneurs. You take your identity serious as an entrepreneur. You have to do the same with sleep. It is just as serious, and it's actually a profession. So sleep is your professional identity. Number 2 is you want to eat your last meal of the day at least 2 hours before bedtime. And then once you do 2, you want to experiment with 3, and then 4, and then 5, and 6. My last meal of the day is around 11:30 a.m. So it's roughly 9 hours before I go to bed. Now, the reason I do that is I tested a few hundred different times to see what would actually produce the highest quality sleep. And by the way, I should probably mention that I think I have the world's best sleep score in human history. 8 months of perfect sleep wearing Whoop. I know many people who struggle to achieve 100% one night. I did it 8 months in a row. And I wanted to demonstrate that you can achieve high quality sleep in a predictable fashion. And so experimenting on what time to eat the last meal of the day was really important, because I found out that if I ate at 11 a.m., when my bedtime arrived at 8:30 p.m., my resting heart rate would be around like 46, 47. Right now it's hovering around 40, but at the time, 46, 47. And if I got that, it would be a perfect night's sleep. If I ate food closer to bed, my resting heart rate would be around 56, 57, and I would lose about 35% of my sleep quality. And it's just so reliable, so algorithmic. And so it makes sense, because when you eat close to bed, the body has to spin up all these metabolic processes to digest food, which takes away resources from actually preparing for sleep. So number 2 is eat earlier and lighter. So if you eat 2 hours before bed, great. But if you have a big pizza, that may put a lot of metabolic load on your body. So try to eat earlier and lighter. So that's number 2. Number 3 is try to be consistent. So when I was doing my 8 months of perfect sleep, I would go to bed within 1 minute every night. So 8:30 p.m. on the dot. And it was phenomenal how my body would basically, the circadian rhythm became so strong that I would just instantaneously fall asleep. Like my body would at 8:29 be like, we're ready, let's go. But it was cool to see how responsive my body was to a clock. It absolutely knew what time it was. So when you're trying to optimize your sleep, try to do like plus or minus 30 minutes. If it's an hour, like okay, but 30 minutes is really closer to ideal. So establish your bedtime whenever you want, 10, 11, 12, like choose your time, and then nail it every single night within 30 minutes. Number 4 is light. Light matters a lot. And so you want to avoid blues, which are in screens, also in a lot of house lights, and you want to do more yellowish warm colors. Ideal is red. So if you can get a red bulb and keep that in your house, that's ideal. And within like an hour or so. So in my house, when 7:30 lands, we turn off all the lights in the house, we turn on our reds, and that's how we roll for the last 30 minutes of the day, or hour of the day. And then 5, I'd say this is probably like, probably as important as when you eat is to have a wind down routine every day, especially you guys, because you're working like so intensely in life that when you go to bed, you're probably still ruminating on things that happened during the day. Like you're thinking of like all the things you missed, the things you regret, the things you want to do, your new ideas, like all the things, and you're reconciling all of reality. If the days happen so fast, you're now just trying to like level set. Now, if you lay down to go to sleep when you're doing that, you're going to think about those things all night long, right? You'll go to sleep and you'll wake up, and then all you can do is think about all these things all night long. So you're in this light sleep mode all night. And so what you can do to try to buffer that is have a wind down routine of roughly an hour, which I know is like a lot of time for a budget. It's worth it. That's how much time it takes the body to settle down and get ready for sleep. So here's what I suggest. So at 7:30 p.m. when my time arrives, I say, okay, evening Bryan or sleep Bryan is now in charge. Like sleep Bryan mode is activated. Now the moment sleep Bryan is activated, a thought's going to come in, and that thought's going to be something like, actually, if we did the thing this way, it'd be so much better, right? Like this new idea, like get out and try to figure out what to do it. And so I have to say, thank you, ambitious Bryan, for that suggestion. That is a wonderful idea, and we really appreciate you. You're doing wonderful things in the world. Also, we're going to sleep right now. So we have all day tomorrow to address this great idea, which I'm sure is going to be wonderful. And then 2 minutes later, I'm going to have a thought. But you know what? You said that thing today, and you probably offended them. They probably hate you, right? Thank you, anxious Bryan. Really appreciate the heads up on that commentary. Tomorrow, we have all day long to address the situation. I'm sure we're going to be okay. But if you just watch your thoughts as they come in, you'll see that you have dozens and dozens and dozens of reminders from your different selves trying to get you to activate these various modes of higher intensity nervous system activity. And you need to just calmly take it in and just kind of brush it aside ever so slightly and do it again and again and again. And by doing this, you can calm your nervous system. So by the time your bedtime arrives, you've kind of reconciled with the day that you've like, okay, I've heard you. We can do these things tomorrow and we can have a great night's sleep. So if you hit the pillow, so the ideal scenario is, let's just say your bedtime is 10 p.m. Your head hits the pillow at 10 p.m. You're asleep in 3 minutes. Okay? You wake up one time a night, if 0. You're up a total of less than 20 minutes per night or 30 minutes. You get 2 hours of REM and 2 hours of deep. And that happens every single night. Now, that's ideal. So 10 p.m. arrives, you've eaten your last meal of the day at least 2 hours, if not 6 hours before, somewhere in that range, whatever's best for you. You've done your 1 hour wind down routine. You're consistent on your bedtime, and you've had some kind of light awareness where you're either in reds or you're just calmed down to the yellows, but you're no blues. Now, you guys can do this. So let me get some commitment from you guys. Like, who actually thinks they can do this? Okay, who doesn't think they can do this? Okay, great. Tell me why. Why can't you do this? What's that? Discipline. Okay, cool. Let's talk about that. So I would say never put yourself in a situation where you need discipline. Never ask of yourself to have willpower. So create systems that are non-negotiable and let your system run you. Never give yourself on-the-spot choice, ever. About food, about sleep. Just make systems, make rules, and then apply those rules. Is that like totally impossible? Right? Like you guys build systems all day long, right? Like build systems for your life. Like we know how strong willpower, like willpower is never going to win the battle, ever. It fails every single time. Never put willpower. I think you were saying no, right?
Yeah, just kids.
Why not?
Kids.
Kids, yeah, those fuckers, right? Yeah. Like they...
I love them. I love my kids, but yeah.
Yeah, right, I know. I have 3 kids too. Those fuckers. So this would be my take on the kids. They're incredibly adaptable. And so if I did kids again, my kids are now 20, 18, and 14. If I had young kids again, I would sit the family down and say, we are a family of sleep. Everybody. And here's the rules of the family. Everyone's doing the rules. not just kids, parents too. And we're all going to get gold stars when we comply with the rules. But like, it would just make it a family culture. And so when some of my friends who have kids, I go to their house and it's just like absolute mayhem. There's no bedtime. There's no limitations on food. There's no limitations on screens. It's just like absolute chaos. And I understand in that environment, that's probably impossibly hard for everyone. But if you create systems, again, in the family and those expectations, those kids will find that to be normal. So that'd be my suggestion is, but you've got to do it yourself. You can't just be like, kids, you do it and I'm going to do something different. Everyone's got to do it. What do you think about that?
No, I like it. It's implementable, but you're right. You got to create the system.
Yeah, and kids will definitely like fall in line if you get them early enough. Yeah.
Like, sorry, thank you. If you have a baby at home, you get woken up 3 times a night at random timestamps. Is there anything you can do to like offset that?
Yeah.
I'm tracking it. That's why I'm saying.
I agree.
Timestamps.
Timestamp is the right call. I agree with you. And it's like a leaf blower too, right? Because like leaf blowers are so annoying because you can't anticipate the frequency of the leaf blower, and so it arouses the nervous system in this unique way that drives all of us mad. And a baby's crying at night is the same concept. You never know when they're going to cry, for what duration, and what way, right? So therefore, like you're in this constant awake state, waiting for the cry. And so I haven't been in that game for 14 years now. I do know that the first 2 kids we had, they were colicky, so they just cried nonstop. And so I'm like in the car at night driving because like you're desperate to find any moment where they'll sleep. And so if they're in the car in the back seat and you're driving around, like you drive around all night, so they sleep. It's just crazy. But we learned with the 3rd child that you have to like let them cry it out, if that's still something people do. Of like you have to say like, here's the practice that we do, and you're going to figure out how to self-soothe, and you're going to solve this out, and then we're going to like build a system. But I think my advice, strength on that, is pretty bad. I think we were just trying to get our heads around it as a 3rd child, but definitely very challenging. And I think you probably want to create a system for it. Okay. Like basically, like if you just like let the baby just do its thing, it's going to be some kind of serpentine path to whatever. And I think there's more systematic ways to go about doing it. Yeah.
So what are you spending that hour before you sleep doing? If you're not looking at screens, are you spending time with your family? Are you reading a book? What's the best way to wind down? Yeah, so you just pick your thing. So I personally love reading a book, an actual physical book in hand. That's the most effective thing, and it's shown to be actually as good, if not better, as drugs, as a sleep med. So like meditate, breath work, book, walk, hang out with a friend. You're just trying to avoid arousing activities. It's like try to avoid fights. You know, like if you and a partner are having a disagreement, typically like if you only see each other in like that last 30 to 60 minutes a day when you're both coming home from a hard day's work, and that's when you try to resolve conflict, it's a really bad time to do that. So try to just isolate calming activities of that sort. Yeah, but basically anything that's going to get your nervous system amped up is something that you want to avoid.
I was curious. So personally, I don't have kids. I just live, with my roommates. I get maybe 7.5 hours of sleep a night. I feel good when I wake up. Is there anything that, am I getting the optimal amount of sleep here, or do I need to take these measures, or do you think that if you're kind of getting the amount of sleep that you're getting and you feel good when you wake up, you're basically, you don't need to necessarily implement these measures?
Yeah. So you want to make as you get older, as you age, your body's ability to sleep decreases. So it becomes harder and harder to sleep. That's especially true for women. Women will spend more time in bed as they age than men to get similar quality of sleep. And so you just want to be sure that your sleep metrics are on point with somebody in their late teens, early 20s. And those are the metrics I said before, which is you want to be, when your head hits the pillow, asleep in like roughly 5 minutes. You want to be up less than 30 minutes per night. That's called your WASO. And then you want around 2 hours of REM and around 2 hours of deep. Now, it varies person to person. Like there's reasonable variance, but that's roughly the profile of a healthy sleep. Bad sleep would be if you're up more than 30 minutes a night. So if you wake up and you ruminate and you can't go back to sleep, or if you take 30 minutes to fall asleep, or if you're getting less REM or less deep. So you want to be very mindful because over time, the impact of not hitting those metrics can have very serious consequences on the body. and you kind of become normalized to it, but all kinds of negative things are happening. So try to nail those, like those 5 criteria.
Yes. Bryan, thanks for coming in. Okay, so question. So I love hanging out with my friends after work. They all kind of work late, and so it kind of impacts my own sleep.
Yeah.
I think the answer to what I should do is create a system. But what are some hacks that you've done to hang out with your friends during the daytime or even before work?
Yeah, so it's like when you set an engineering requirement and you make it non-negotiable, right? Everything else kind of folds itself around it. And so if you make your bedtime a non-negotiable, it's an engineering requirement for your system, then you kind of just make accommodations. And everything just kind of, like once you start rolling that back, you can figure out when work stop time needs to happen, when friend hangout time needs to happen, when the day start needs to happen. You just kind of like roll through. I know with my friends that they've been very cool to accommodate my preferences. Like they'll now, like instead of a dinner start time like at 7:30, they'll do it at 6:30, so I can hang out from like 6:30 to like 8-ish. So yeah, I think, and some friend groups are more open to doing modifications, others are not. So I think it just takes time. And I found that the more of us that do this, the easier it is for all of us. Because when it's a cultural norm that you all do want some reasonable sleep, then it's much easier to make these accommodations. Like recently, we've been doing these Don't Die Summits where we've been doing dance parties in the morning, 7 a.m. and like we're a rave environment. And it's cool. So I'd say, yeah, like it's like really about a cultural shift more than anything else. It's not like we are questioning the laws of physics. We're just basically probing at social norms. And so when a friend group locks in, it's just so much better.
Hey, Bryan. Thanks for coming. 3 of us on the team are ex-Whoop employees, so it's really cool to see you wearing Whoop and get a lot of value out of it. What we're working on now in this YC batch is trying to help athletes optimize their strength and cardio. And it seems like there's a lot of literature in like the longevity space about the importance of strength and cardio. And I know you have a really detailed workout protocol, so I was just curious kind of what went into that and how you think about strength versus aerobic fitness.
Yeah, thanks for what you did at Whoop. It's a great product.
Thank you.
We've tried to approach this to say, what does the evidence say about lifespan and health span for the various markers? So cardiovascular ability, strength, biomarkers. And so we really try to play to that. So like we look at my VO2 max. So we test out on a routine basis. My last measurement was 58.7 or something like that. Yep, top 1.5% of 18-year-olds. So if we assume like a 10% decline every decade, I think that's roughly the number, then I really need to be at 70 right now. If I'm imagining living at some duration of time. So I think what I have now is okay, but probably not on point with where we need to be. Then yeah, in muscle, we measure with MRI, which is like comparable or if not better than DEXA. And so we try to maintain top 1 percentile for both muscle and fat doing that. And then we take those things and back into what needs to happen on a daily basis. And so, yeah, roughly an hour a day of workout. But it definitely like muscle and cardio are like top 5 most important things, in the top 5 most important things.
Awesome. Thank you.
So.
I wanted to ask you, in your experience, the relationship between your productivity and your sleep? Because I think the surface level understanding would be more sleep equals more productivity, but I'm curious if there's like a maxima or how you have measured your productivity in relationship to some of the stuff that you experiment with.
Yeah. I would say, okay, so you guys are all familiar with first principles thinking, right? You try to assess what you know, and then you assume the fewest number of things to get to a cleanest first principle. There's another way of thinking about this called zeroth principle thinking. And the way you could capture that is Schopenhauer said that talent is the ability to hit the target no one else can. Genius hits a target no one else can see. And so it's one game to basically try finding a game and being better at the game than other people. There's another game to play, which is you're trying to find genius. You're trying to find the things that no one can see. And so when you're sleep deprived, you can't be a zeroth principle thinker. You're basically impaired. Your capacities are impaired. And so the best you can do is just kind of, you can be in the game, playing the game, trying to score points, but you're not really going to innovate in interesting ways. It's harder. Whereas when you're well rested and you have greater cognitive capacity, you can play the zeroth principle game. And I would think that a lot of you are playing zeroth principle games. You're trying to do things in novel ways. You're trying to figure out things that have not been done before. And so I'd say that you're probably better off, there's like some probably value equation of like a good I won't go down that path. A zeroth principle insight probably has a very good ROI. And so there's a good argument to be made that investing in your sleep is potentially the highest value investment you can make in your entire life. And there's also an argument to be made that like any investor you have, like the single thing they want to see in performance metrics every month is your sleep score. Right? If you're sleeping well and you're just basically a motivated person, you're probably in a better state to make better decisions than you would otherwise be. So I'd say this is the cultural thing I'm trying to get at is like it legit pays to be healthy in every capacity. I know personally, I've had better ideas in the time of caring for my health than I have in my entire life.
I have ongoing like back issues. Like every 3 months, it just goes, and I go see doctors, and they just say you're old. Like that's the response I get is you're an old man.
Yeah.
What can I do? Like I'm willing to spend any amount of money to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you got any?
What's your chronological age?
I'm 44.
Yeah. So yeah. So first, I agree with you. It's like, okay, if I'm in your shoes, one is I don't trust any doctor. Yeah, that's probably a really good starting point. The ways they're going to think about the problem are probably inadequate. They probably are not accounting for the breakthroughs that have happened recently, and they're probably myopically viewing it through a lens of what they have done. So one, that's very discouraging. Number two is, the back is incredibly complicated. I've actually been thinking about this myself because I have quite a few friends who have back problems, and they struggle with the same thing. So many of them have tried stem cells. They've tried MSCs. Some have done really hard on physical training, where they do a lot of back exercises on a regular basis. Yes, I suppose it depends on your particular problem. I think what I might try to do is try to find a doctor that can help me like iterate through the problem, like not expecting a silver bullet, but just expecting that we're gonna have to try a bunch of stuff, physical therapy, potentially some stem cells, potentially, So do you have anybody in your life, like a good doctor that like, helps you think through?
No, that's the frustrating bit. Like I've spoken to so many different ones, and they all give the same, which is ridiculous. And I'm an exited founder. I've got lots of money to spend.
Yeah.
I thought I'd be able to solve this with money, and so far, yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm with you. Like I was in a similar situation, and so we only made progress because we went outside the norms and we just tried a bunch of stuff. But it was this process of like having a team that was open-minded, doing the lit research. Like, there's so much good stuff in the literature that just is not known. And then 3 is having like a systematic protocol to try to tackle it. You know, like for example, when we did stem cells, we researched it for a year until we found a clinical grade provider that we could verify. But it was a long and arduous process to find a legitimate stem cell provider. I just did 300 million stem cells in my joints. So I did 50 million in each of my knees, my hips, and my shoulders. I just got my 6-month MRI done to see if there's any effect. So we'll see. Like, I don't know if it's going to work or not. But we at least did a rigorous process and experiment where we got baseline. We're going to do a follow-up. We'll see if there was a difference. But yeah, like, I hear you 100%. I'm very empathetic to your situation. But I would say...
I'm willing to be the guinea pig.
Yeah.
So I'm at the point where I'm thinking of going back to university to study biomedical because I'm like, how else can I solve this?
Yeah. Yeah, with Blueprint, we're playing with this idea of basically there's quite a few of us in the world just like us who are willing, who have the resources to do this, and we just need capable people to help us like try to think through this thing in a systematic way. We've talked about creating these cohorts where we just like try to tackle it as a community. So yeah, let's be in touch, because I think there's like something to this where there's a lot of desire to try to answer problems the medical community fails to address today.
Cool,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to know, like, what would you say is your kind of daily time commitment to not dying? And then at what point of that do you think that, like, you hit some, diminishing marginal returns?
Yeah. So I mean, for me, it's a full-time job. So this is like, I currently have like 3 to 4 full-time jobs equivalents. It's like my schedule's extremely busy. But really, you can get the majority of the benefits just by mastering sleep, diet, and exercise. So I'd say, like, for all of you here, don't worry about the advanced therapies. Don't worry about all the extreme stuff. Just master the basics, and you'll probably get the 20%, 80% marker. But you really have to like master them for the yields to be there. It can't be like sporadically jumping in and out. So I'd say, yeah, the wins are pretty easy to achieve if you can get the basics done.
Hey, Bryan. From your own health, you've reversed all these biomarkers, and they're all heading in the right direction. But, sort of accidents aside, from a health perspective, what are you most concerned about and see as something that really needs to be solved or significantly addressed to actually achieve the goal of not dying?
Yeah. I mean, so I guess like just to be on the record here, like I think my biggest risk in life is irony. Like I'm the don't die guy, so it means inevitably I'm going to die by the most ridiculous means possible. We all know this to be true, right? Like this is how the world works. So when I die by a bus or choking on broccoli, I give you permission to laugh and have fun and make memes and celebrate with me. So I will sacrifice for irony. But I guess I recently went to a music festival, and it was like uneven ground, and I was talking to those with me, and I was like, hey guys, remember, be careful. Like no one step in a hole or sprain their ankle. And then we went to this set, and I was with my son, and one of our favorite songs came on. I was like, fuck it, let's go. And I broke out and danced pretty hard, and my foot dropped into a hole, and I twisted my ankles. I actually fractured it and a high-grade sprain. And so it was cool because we, one of the doctors on our team, we tried to put together like the fastest healing protocol in human history, which is like a fun challenge. And it was successful that we healed like 100% faster than normal. But also it really got me reflecting on what I'm willing to do to have risk of injury. And since I've really changed my perspective, that being out for that 8 weeks or so, it was like so inconvenient, like for the objectives of doing this health thing, that I decided to stop doing things that are higher risk. Like I grew up snowboarding and skiing. I don't think I'm gonna do those things anymore. Like the risk of tearing an ACL or knee is just like too much. So me personally, I've really changed my risk profile of what I'm willing to do. Now, a lot of people might say that's really sad. Like, I'm not living life where I'm like narrowing my aperture, but I actually view it as just a better path of like, I'm really trying for a certain objective. So for me, that's how I auto-corrected. For others, like I would say that in society, we probably all underestimate injury. Like an injury creates asymmetries, injury creates lasting impact. And so I think there's like this tolerance towards injuries that we just say it's part of life and what happens, but it really has very serious complications. Like I'm not quite sure how you hurt your back, but like at 44 years old, it's the most annoying thing in existence to have this perpetual injury. Like it just shuts everything down. Like you're capable, you're rich, like you can do many things in the world. Like you have this terrible thing just hurting all the time. So like injury really is very significant. And the cultural pushback on that is like, oh, but you're not living life. Like, why are you like, so it's just like there's this intense pressure of doing things. If that was your question.
So yeah, I wanted to sort of think like, so let's say you have no injuries, no accidents, there's no irony, everything's fine. Do you believe you're on a trajectory right now where you will not die, or there are still health aspects that need to be addressed for that?
Yeah, I think this is, right now is just in the past, like, call it 4 or 5 years, is the first time in human history, the first time just in 4 billion years, where a species, an intelligent species, could say with a straight face, we may not die. Right? People in the past have like chased the fountain of youth, and it's been like this kind of comical endeavor. It's never been serious, but right now it is. Like, it is the first time in history that you can say it, and it just happened like just in the past few years, where you can kind of piece together. You know, like, we have sysadmin access to atoms and molecules, to organisms. We can engineer reality at every level, right? Atom by atom, biological systems, digital systems, intelligence systems, like all of it. So like, there's no reason why we couldn't figure this out. So that's why I'm so serious about this. Is like, this is as a transformation as big as anything that's ever happened to species. I hope all you guys have sunscreen on. Do you guys bring your sunscreen today?
Yep.
Yeah? Yeah. I was going to show you guys, I was going to bring a picture of my UV damage. I grew up in the sun. Like, we were in the sun all the time. When we started Blueprint, I measured my skin age using multispectral imaging, and my skin age was like 70 years old. I had so much UV damage from the sun. And so for the past couple of years, we've been trying to like bring that back. But sun damage is very, very hard to knock out. All right, go.
Hey, Bryan. Ahmed here, calisthenics athlete and founder of Rex.fit. We're on a mission to automate nutrition tracking. So I know that you eat the same stuff every day, or let's say every week. How much do you think the average person can actually eat the same thing every day or every week? Because that would render my mission obsolete.
Yeah, no, so like, you know, we are very humble that what we do is like not the only way to do it. It's just one way of doing it. So, and we're also eager to say like, it may not even be the best way of doing it. So I think what you're doing is great, and I hope you win. And so like, this is like, so I'm vegan. I do 130 grams of 30 grams of protein a day. I exercise an hour a day. I'm caloric restricted. So you put those 4 things together, and anyone's going to say, I'm going to be weak, I'm going to be frail, and there's no way I can achieve good health, right? Yet, I have better biomarkers than anyone who dares to compete with me. And so I basically have defied all cultural norms on what is a good thing. Now, is there another way to do it? Sure. Like, is there another path for the same thing? Sure. Like, could I achieve the same markers a different way? Sure. Like, I just don't think we know enough about health and biology to like say these things with confidence. And so what I've been trying to do is just open source and say, here's one way, but like, do you? And that's why I try to say, like, so a lot of people will approach me, they'll say, I'm going to beat you. And I say, great, let me help you. Like, I really want to see you beat me, because then we show an alternative path. So this is really trying to like lift everyone in the community all at once. And it's not a game of trying to be right. It's a game of us trying to figure things out collectively. So I hope you win.
So I have a question on optimizing sleep. So the body has an internal temperature regulation, and there's mattresses that can cool your body with water, and saying like, well, that's how you optimize the sleep. But I've been trying it, not successfully, and my fear is like, well, when you override the body's own temperature regulation, maybe you're actually worse off by handing that over to, now is AI, but tons of sensors. So what's your take on that? Can you actually optimize the sleep by overriding the body's own temperature regulation?
So far, it's been successful, yes. So I use an 8-sleep bed. It's wonderful. My sleep definitely improves dramatically with temperature controlled. Like, whether it has long-term consequences, it's a great question. I don't think anyone knows. I mean, this is kind of like we have AC in society. Does that change our body's ability as well? So it's a good question, and I'm not sure I haven't seen evidence on that. I will note that my body temperature, since I've been doing Blueprint, has for 4 years, it's dropped by 4 degrees Fahrenheit. So my basal body temperature is now 94.8 Fahrenheit. Normal is 98.7. And so there's interesting evidence where longer living species have lower basal temperatures. And so we've seen my heart rate decrease dramatically. We've seen my body temperature decrease dramatically. My thyroid function is fine. So we can't find any problems with this, but it's been a curious thing to see how much the body's dropped in temp over this time with caloric restriction and low inflammation diet, stuff like that.
That's cool. For newborn or neonatals, they now do dropping the temperature to reduce brain damage in Sweden as a protocol.
Yeah.
So there's probably good evidence for that.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe interesting that my body temp has dropped so dramatically. It's an interesting relationship with my speed of aging too, where I was aging faster than normal when I started, and now it's among best in world. So it's a fun marker to follow.
Hi, Bryan. Very excited to hear you're trying stem cell therapy. Looking forward to how it's going to turn out. We're actually building in-cell therapy ourselves,
Cool.
more for treating diseases. But I'd like to hear from your side, someone trying to access cell therapies and these advanced therapies. What are the biggest hurdles you're running into to try these new things, as you say?
Yeah, so we look at donor process. Who are the people? Where's it coming from? Is it clinical grade manufacturing, is it GMP? And then verification steps at the very end, right before injection, can you verify the number of cells that are being injected? So just basic quality controls around the entire supply chain. And then of course we want to see evidence what are they used for and all that kind of stuff. But it's such a basic ask of is this legit or not? Because as you know, there's just no legitimacy in stem cells. It's a wild, wild west. You get injected crazy shit. It's actually absurd that this thing is happening. And so the number of legitimate providers is so small. So we worked with Cell Cold Labs out of Sweden that are very buttoned up. And I think there's probably a few others, but yeah, I would love to learn what you're building. We're trying to find legitimate stem cell providers. Yeah. Cool.
Hi, Bryan. Hi.
Yeah.
So I'm a cancer researcher, and let's talk about diet. I really agree with you that diet and a lot of diseases are overlooked, especially in cancer research. I mean, doctors don't know anything about diet and supplement, and I'm really glad you're working on this. I'm actually planning to build the first platform to connect patient and scientists, because these scientists can offer the latest scientific information from diet to nutrition. But I'm wondering, what are you taking every day to improve your longevity? Is there any supplements like food? I know caloric restriction is big. I've been with, when I was at Harvard 15 years ago, I know David Sinclair was following that diet. But is there anything else that you have researched that you really believe in for longevity and health?
Yeah. So I had someone close to me go through cancer, and I'm sure you would say the same thing. It's shockingly bad. Once you step into the system, so just like at the back question, you step into the medical system, it's just atrocious, how you're treated. So you really have to take things into your own hands. We again, the process we tried to follow is we said, if you go through all the scientific literature on healthspan, lifespan, and you try to grade the evidence and say, what evidence do we believe? Because not all the evidence is believable. And then you prioritize those things. That's what we've done to create the blueprint protocol. And so every calorie and every nutrient has had to fight for its life. And so this is we actually made a blueprint product stack for this thing, 74 health interventions of the basic things that we should be consuming on a daily basis. Everybody, both genders, at all ages. And so we've tried to create basically a legitimate form of a daily vitamin. Daily vitamins before were kind of this approximation, but it was a good idea, but kind of a miss with science. Whereas when you look at the clinical trials and you try to put together what ingredients actually have effect, like polyphenols and garlic and stuff like that, we tried to nail all the power laws within those ingredients. So we'd love to get your take on that. We gave it our best go of if you take the best science and you put together a daily longevity vitamin. So it's on the Blueprint website. There's 74 total. It includes extra virgin olive oil and a few others. Would love to get your take. That was our best go. And no one in the world's done that before. No one's actually said what is the comprehensive way to approach this.
Hi, Bryan. First of all, huge fan here. Here I am.
Hey.
Yeah, so huge fan. Your memes about AGI made me cancel my subscription, so great job. I have a very general or basic question. So you said in the beginning, the human body have a crazy capability of bounce back the health, right?
Yeah.
So why shouldn't I, as a founder, just hustle for 10 years and then become an excellent founder, and then bounce back my health as you did, because it worked great for you, right?
Yeah. So this is so funny. The other day, I published a genocide score. So I basically, okay, you take a cigarette costs you roughly 11 minutes of life. Like there's like good data around that. You can look at some data on fast food, and you can do some back of the envelope calculations. And a fast food meal of a burger, shake, and fries roughly costs you 11 minutes of life. And so I took that number, I took the global sales of like McDonald's and Wendy's and a few others, and I calculated the genocide score. Like how much genocide is McDonald's committing on a daily basis? And so, but then when people saw the data, they're like, oh man, that's actually a good deal, because if a fast food meal costs me 11 minutes, cooking a healthy meal costs me 20 minutes. So like, I'm going to save time. I'm going to be better off. And so like, no, you guys, that's not the point. And so the same things happen with Blueprint, where many founders have looked at me and they've said like, okay, the lesson Bryan's trying to teach us is like, grind yourself, make the money, and then make up for it on the other side. So it's like, no, that's not the story. So I will say that reversing aging damage is really, really hard. Slowing down your speed of aging is much more doable. Reversing damage is just like next level. So we've tried many ways to do this. We reduced my thymus age by 7 years through a therapy, which was one of our biggest successes. We reduced my brain age by 9 years on another marker, which was a big success. But otherwise, aging damage I've suffered in other parts of my body, we've just had no success. And so I would caution you that if you do burn yourself, if you pay the price of accelerated aging for some duration of time, you don't know the consequence that you're going to pay with. Like you could have heart problems or back problems or brain problems that you can't resolve. So I would strongly, strongly urge you to prioritize your health and to get over the hump where you can be healthy and be successful. Like for example, like my left ear is aged 64. Between 4,000 hertz and 12,000 hertz, I'm basically deaf. Now that sucks. Like I can't experience life in the 4,000 to 12,000 hertz range. I just have like that limited ability. And so when you can't run or jump or do other things, like your life just becomes much more narrow. So yeah, I wish I could go back in time and try to persuade my former self that I could be as ambitious as I wanted to be and still prioritize health. Yeah, that's the whole goal of today, is like to get you on the other side. You can be epic and be healthy. You don't need to pay the price. I mean, did that do anything? Like, where are you at on that? Like, what's your mentality on that? I don't think he's convinced. I think he's gonna grind just as hard as he did before.
No, I'm convinced right now. But during the YC batch, I was on the completely other side of the spectrum. So I, myself, I really sacrificed my health.
Yes.
But now I'm trying really to figure out, okay, can I really be epic and be healthy? Like I'm still not in the state where I say yes, I can, but I'm trying to really start believing it. That's why I also ask a question.
Yeah. I think that's a very honest answer. Like it's legitimately challenging to believe, right? Especially when like others are burning and you're not. Yeah. Then there's this question: are you somehow doing less? Are you somehow falling behind? Are you somehow lower status? Like they're very complicated social contemplations. And so I agree. It's a very, very hard situation. So you have to be pretty firmly convinced that this is a good path. And so I would say, really, you will be a better entrepreneur if you do that. So cool.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Bryan. Over here in the front. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, hey.
I've got the mic. When it comes to travel, how do you think about sleep and maybe diet when there's like time zone changes and a long flight? Like Sunday, I'm flying from here to London, 8-hour time change, 11-hour flight.
Yeah. Okay. So travel. Yeah. So I just spent 10 days in Asia, and international travel is really, really expensive, biologically, right? Like the time adjustments and all. So it took me 7 days to recover as I came back until I got my first full night's sleep. So yeah, travel is very, very costly. A few things I've done. One is when you travel internationally, don't eat on the plane. Like, try to be in a fasted state. It just really wrecks, eating there really wrecks your ability to adapt to time zones and also sleep. Two is I try to take all my foods with me as much as I can. So a lot of it is like powders and stuff like that. But we, at Blueprint, we have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars testing foods and supplements over the past couple of years. And I would say that I knew the food system was dirty before. I'm now horrified. It is just absolutely unbelievable how dirty, how toxic food is. And so I used to do Blueprint because, like, when we were doing this program, like, we had to figure out ourselves what I was eating. Like, if you get a supplement, are you getting what the label says, or is it different? And then when you're eating food, like, what is the toxin load? And we found out a few things. One is that it doesn't matter what any company says about their product. Their marketing speak is absolutely worthless. The only thing that's valuable is their third-party lab results. Nothing else matters. Do not believe companies, period. Number two is you have to assume the food you're eating is very dirty. It's just toxic, just by the supply chain around the world, water. And so I really have gone to extensive lengths to try to take all my food with me. So, like, when I travel, in short, I am going into other people's systems, their water systems, their food systems, their sleep systems, and you have to anticipate that you're going to be in their environments, and they're not going to care about the things you care about. So you have to, like, plan ahead each one of the markers. So I try to take, like, roughly half my calories per day with me, and then I'll go to the grocery store and get the remaining 1,000 calories. But if you're trying to pick up food at the airport or trying to do, like, restaurant stuff, you're just going to be in a very challenging situation. The food's going to be bad. Toxin load will probably be very high. So yeah, I guess, like, a general answer is, like, you have to be very systematic, because if you just, like, are playing by ear, you're going to be subjected to people's systems, and that will be very unhealthy.
And how about sleep?
Yeah, so, like, small things that we do is I try to stay in at least a 4-star hotel or above. For me personally, because if the duvet is like an inch thick, it's thick enough to have a good night's sleep. If you're in a hotel where it has this, sheet-like duvet, I can't sleep with that kind of weight. So if you have certain things that matter to you, try to find a hotel that gives you a higher probability of that given thing. Two is I try to keep my room very cold. Like, I'll go to the lowest number possible. Like, last night in my room, it was 64 Fahrenheit to compensate for I don't have my temperature-controlled mattress. Three is eating earlier really, really, really helps when you're traveling. Like, I personally sleep better in a more, like, fasted state than if I'm full. And when you're traveling, you usually have to eat, like, late night dinners with friends or business associates. And so if you're out with people, you can still socialize. I try to then, like, get something like steamed vegetables or something on my plate, just so I'm socially appropriate. Like, I have something in front of me and I can kind of nibble and, like, make the motion, but I really limit my caloric intake. But there's a few things that, like, no alcohol as well. So, like, a few things will definitely kill you when you travel, right? If you're doing alcohol, or you eat late, or you have a bad hotel with it's too loud, or the sheets aren't right, or the temperature's not right. So I know the power markers in my routines of what really wrecks my sleep, or wrecks my ability to get recovery, and which doesn't. And I try to just master those. Is that helpful? Okay.
Awesome. I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions if we're super quick. Okay, so here's one.
Hey, Bryan. How's it going, man? Phil Baxter. Thanks so much for coming and chatting with us. Real quick, I noticed you're wearing glasses. Like, I stopped wearing sunglasses during the day because I'm trying to subscribe to, like, balancing my circadian rhythm. Do you not subscribe to that in terms of, like, timing of the day and understanding, like, potentially getting better sleep? Does that not work for you? Or do you have a reason not to do that? And then real quick, I stopped using AG1. Love Blueprint. My company does packaging for e-com. It would be cool to chat with your team to see if maybe we could do packaging for your shippers if you're down.
Yeah, great.
But on the glasses thing, I was curious to see that. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
On your end.
So I wear glasses because of the UV damage from the sun, and so this is, I think, the same comment before about food, which is my opinion here is not meant to say that I'm correct. It's just to say it's a perspective. And so I know from having measured my skin age that the sun exposure comes at a very serious cost, right? You may get improved circadian rhythm. You may get improved mood. You may get improved vitamin D production. Like, you may get many benefits. It's not free. And so there's just a trade-off space you need to play in, and you can choose the game you want to play. And so I've chosen skin health because the damage from UVA, UVB is very serious, especially like at this time of day when it's a higher level. And same with my eyesight, where my eyesight is currently perfect. I don't need glasses or anything of the sort. And UV damage happens and it deteriorates. And currently, there's not very good technology to rejuvenate eye health. Right? You can do LASIK and things like that, but not like truly rejuvenative. And so what we're trying to do is reduce the overall biological damage my body suffers on a daily basis. And so that's why we're trying to measure every organ of like, what's my organ age now? What is that rate of death? And can we slow it? And so that's why we try to tackle this in such a meticulous fashion. And so other people have other goals, like they want to like optimize for certain things. We're trying to optimize for one metric: don't die. And so for that, it's very helpful because it's focused, but it also has drawbacks where like we're not optimizing for other things. So if you've got games you're playing in that way, like great, that's cool. But we're trying to prove a point in one narrow domain. I think you said we're up, right? Lance is here and ready to go.
Yeah, I think we're running out of time, but we do need 5 minutes to set up the fireside. So if you guys want to walk up to Bryan, who has been extremely inspirational, thank you so much, Bryan.
Yep. So you guys, I'll say one last thing. I'll do this quickly. You're not going to understand what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyways. Okay. The reason I'm doing this is because I think we exist in the most consequential time in human history. We are giving birth to superintelligence. Nothing else matters beside the question of what do you do as a species when you're giving birth to superintelligence. And I want to propose to you, there's no existing model of human thought or of societal organization that answers the question, what do you do when you're giving birth to superintelligence? Not democracy, not capitalism, not Islam, not Christianity, not wokeism. No existing form of human thought actually answers the question. I want to propose to you that don't die is the only practically relevant framework that is equal to this moment in time. Don't die is a new philosophy. It's a new economic system. It's a new political system, new morals, new ethics. It's a new computational model of existence that tries to reduce entropy. That's what you do when you acquire superintelligence. And so you're not going to understand this because I've been doing these Don't Die dinners for the past couple of years. It takes 2 hours in a group conversation to even begin to understand what Don't Die means. It has multiple layers. It's not just some clever frame that you're not going to die. It challenges everything you understand about existence. And so I hope to do this at scale with many of you in time. But I do want to say that memetically, this is right place, right thing, right time for us to do as a species. And it begins by going to bed on time, by having cultural norms that say we can prioritize health and life and do and be epic as a species. But that's what Don't Die is about. And so I hope that all of you will, at some point in time, we have a chance to engage in this conversation. But to me, this is like the most epic thing we could work on as a group. So great being with you guys today. And I hope you leave today with the slightest level of permission that you can safely prioritize your health. That getting 8 hours of sleep is a stride of pride and not a walk of shame. That you can proudly be healthy and still be confident in your abilities to be an entrepreneur and be epic at what you're doing. So, cool guys.